I don't know how the Black Panther sequel is going to say goodbye to Chadwick Boseman. But I will say this. This is a hell of a sign-off story. Episode 2, What If T'Challa was Star-Lord? Now, I noted in my review of the first episode that while it was pretty good and I had fun with it for the most part, that it felt very safe. And I hoped that rather than being a template for how the stories were going to go moving forward, that it was instead a more grounded, less deviating from the story we already know story to get people acclimated to what this would be before they start going wilder with the things. And I am so happy to report it was the second one. Because this. Look, Captain Carter was lovely. It was great to see Peggy kicking that much butt, but this is what I'm here for. Here, the number of characters who get roped in feel way more organic. I kind of complained how Steve was turned into a proto-Iron Man, which, I mean, it's not the end of the world in the previous one, but it made me go a little like, oh, you were really struggling to cram other characters into this. It's a Guardians of the Galaxy setup. Just bring in all the cosmic characters. So, and like, they brought in almost all the voices, and pretty much all of them are great. I was a little bit nervous with Chadwick Boseman because, you know, it's an accent, it's a put-on voice, and I was worried about how much he'd be able to convey about personality with not his natural accent in an audio-only medium. But he nails it. He was so good. There is so much that is brought across about his personality and what gravitates people towards him. And all of the cast, almost all the cast, was really good. Michael Rooker, terrific. Karen Gillan, wonderful. Sean Gunn, back as Kraglin. They brought back the actor for Taserface. Oh, Djimon Hounsou is Korath. He is having so much fun in this. Josh Brolin is this version of Thanos is like, what? But the only one who didn't quite work for me is actually someone who is kind of suffering from what I was afraid would be the case for Chadwick Boseman, but it wasn't there. But it was a little bit for Benicio del Toro as the Collector, which is that Del Toro, when he does his strange voices, it works in film because he brings a physicality to it that sells the voice he's using, whereas here, you lose that physicality, and they weren't really able to recreate it with the performance in the animation, and so the voice just sounds a little off. Not quite stilted in the way that Sebastian Stan did a bit in the previous one, but just a little like, that's not quite working. And I feel like he would have sold it if he was physically performing the part, and like he probably was in the booth, but we're not seeing that in a way that makes it all pull together. But the way the character's used still totally works. And this is such a romp. But more than that, I love the way it really properly ripples out everything, because ultimately once Captain Carter, you know, got the super soldier serum in the previous episode, the overall structure of what happened was effectively the same as what happened in the first Avenger. Here, this takes events and characters spanning Guardians of the Galaxy, both volumes, everything involved with Thanos and T'Challa and Black Panther and all these other things, and mixes it all together in a way that you're like, oh, dang. And it really has a lot of fun with the ripple effects of this one change. Whereas ultimately the change from Steve to Peggy didn't change that much about what was going on here. I love the idea that T'Challa, being so fundamentally such a vastly different person from Peter Quill, that effect has massive ripples that spread so far to so many characters. It's so much fun to watch. Now, I've been avoiding specifics and spoilers up to this point. About the closest I've come to spoilers is naming some of the people who show up. But given that it's galactically set, it's the cosmic characters, these are all characters you should have expected to some degree to possibly show up. But if you haven't seen it yet, I'm going to start getting into spoilers. This is just too much fun. Now, with lesser characters or with lesser performers, it would have been very hard to sell the idea that T'Challa, because of his personality, would actually change this much of the galaxy. That could have felt very cheap, but it doesn't. Partly because not only of Chadwick Boseman's just magnetism as a performer, even in only vocals, but also, if you remember Peter Quill and how he was and what a doofus he was, you're like, yeah, it's not just that T'Challa's that good, it's that Peter's that much of a dork. So it's not just like, oh, he's really good, but also the other guy is way down here. So it makes it click. And I love that it happens like right off when Korath the Pursuer sees him and immediately recognizes him. Oh, Star-Lord! It cues it right off the bat for not only how different this is going to be, but the direction in which it's going to be different. I was kind of initially boggled by the idea that Thanos was talked out of his entire plan. But the more I thought about it and watching the impact that the somewhat more easy to follow impact that T'Challa had on characters like Yondu and Kraglin and all the Ravagers, but then to see Thanos and like to see that Thanos didn't really change as a person. He was still like, it would have worked. So to see him like kind of holding on to that idea, but also being like, no, you're right. And also what's kind of fun about that is that the solution that T'Challa basically offers him, a redistribution of wealth and resources, is what a lot of people who felt like being plot hole nitpickers would criticize about Thanos. Like, why is he wiping out half the universe when he could use the power of the gauntlet to actually redistribute or increase the amount of resources? So that is a criticism. I'm not actually sure that was actually a valid criticism. It's a criticism of the character of Thanos. Not like badly written, but like as a person. It's a flawed thinking process, and it says a lot about him that the first solution he came to was, well, we'll kill half the people. But I kind of like that it addresses a criticism that some people actually had of his plan in the movie, and that somebody like T'Challa could be the one to explain to him, like, no, just hear me out here and actually get him on board. And then accounting for all the ripple effects of that, like the fact that Drax still has his wife and kid, and he's just tending bar now. The fact that Thanos' the Black Order, those four, are still around and they're still dangerous. They're just not following Thanos anymore. The idea that Thanos no longer pursuing this path left a power vacuum that the Collector slipped into. All of these events, and also like at the very end, accounting for the fact that Ego still wanted Peter Quill and to find him, and having that happen. So giving us actually a little tiny taste of that thing that I mentioned in the previous review, where traditionally what if stories in the comics tend to end badly, as a way to sort of reinforce the idea that the universe that we get, the main universe, is the best of all possible universes. Because even though this side story multiverse alternate thing is fun, it ultimately would have turned out very badly. And this manages to imply that that would happen without actually having to show it and have it end on a bummer note. Because you can choose to believe, okay, yeah, I can see where this would be a problem, because now Peter Quill doesn't have the backing and the history and the support network that would pull him out of Ego's orbit the way that he did in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. So maybe now we're screwed, but also maybe not. This entire universe is different. Maybe maybe other people will find a way to stop this anyway. So you don't have to see it as a down note, but it is still able to evoke that thing that is, as I said, is kind of traditional to the comics. A few people seem to think that I was implying that that's how the show should be. I didn't actually mean that. I just found it interesting that that's usually the tone of the comics as an ending point. So here, despite just being wonderfully fun from top to bottom, they're still able to evoke that a little bit without bringing the mood down. That's a nice trick. And I love all the little details they remember to account for, like the Collector's assistant who kind of goes against him in that first Guardians of the Galaxy movie. Here, the thing remembered, yeah, no, she's still going to be holding that grudge, so let's account for that and apply for it. The fun that was had with Howard the Duck without having him take over the story, which, that was nice, that was enjoyable. Just the fact that Nebula had hair, and like the fact that as much as T'Challa might have helped Yondu find different purpose in life, Yondu's still Yondu, and Yondu's still gonna do some things that are a little bit screwed up. So again, kind of like Thanos, accounting for the fact that how T'Challa was able to change the direction these characters were headed, but not fundamentally changed who they are as people, so you still see the bits and the glimmers of who they were, like with both Thanos and with Yondu, and a little bit with Nebula, with the scheming on with her there. So it is able to do these really well-balanced adjustments on the characters to set them on new trajectories without feeling like a complete betrayal of who they are. This has really just been a gushing ramble because this was so much fun. Like, to the point that I'm a little bit worried with this being the second one. Like, this is such an upgrade from the first one, and I enjoyed the first one, but this is such a higher mark to hit. I am a little bit afraid that the series has already peaked. I don't know if it can get better than this. I hope it can at least keep meeting this mark, because dang, this was really good. I mean, if I'm going to level any kind of criticism on it, I still don't love the animation style. I still feel that fundamentally it works much better when it is A, action scenes, or B, they are using it to recreate specific shots from the movie. So like when they are recreating that opening scene from Guardians of the Galaxy with T'Challa and Korath in this animation, it looks good because this style of animation does a very good job of looking almost exactly like the original film did. So for those things, it's very good. But this is also an episode with a significantly larger portion of talking versus action. The last one had a bit more of an action focus, whereas this one, because T'Challa's kind of main thing is actually talking these people around to his way of thinking, then that means that there is a fair bit more talking in this. There's still action in it. The action's great. And the talking scenes, thankfully, are saved by the performances and the story going on. But again, my eyes get drawn to the mouths because that's just where my eyes tend to focus on things. And the mouths are probably the worst part. And they look the least convincing. And again, part of that's on me, but it's part of why I don't like this animation style, and I never will. But you know what? It says a lot that I can be watching something in a visual style that I don't care for and that hasn't turned me around to make me think, yes, this is in fact a great way to do animation. But I'm still sitting here gushing my head off about how good this is. Oh, it was so much fun to wake up and watch this first thing in the morning. I need more days to start like this. Dang! Ha ha! What if T'Challa was Star-Lord? Oh, man. It's really good. What did you think of this one? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. I have a Patreon. It's how I pay my bills, and it keeps this entire operation up and running. I've also got other social medias for you to check out besides, but no pressure. Like, share, subscribe, help me out as well. But at the end of the day, my friends, you are the council. I'm just running the meetings. And until next time, this council is adjourned.